Hi, everyone. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. It's coming to an end. It's Sunday night. I was inspired to do a video about how astrology plays a role in how we feel or what's going on in our lives. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. Seems like if there's a full moon, things are different. There's more activity. Sometimes, it can bring out the riffraff, and it just seems like it's a time where things happen more. And when I really started noticing that is when I started working with clients. And I'd know there was a full moon, and it would be interesting how whatever anybody was going through was coming to a lot of times to a head. And sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad, but the patterns kind of seem the same. Like if the clients were coming in and it was all coming, not in a bad way, but maybe secrets were coming to light, things were breaking open, if you were on the edge of anything. And I would notice this pattern, or sometimes a full moon appeared to produce a good effect where my clients would come in, and I say mostly, there was always the exception, but it was enough that it piqued my attention. So sometimes a moon would have a good effect, and I'd notice my clients would all come in a good mood that day. And maybe landed a job or got into a new relationship. So I became real interested and started following a couple people in studying astrology. I'm not an astrologer, so I don't pretend to have any kind of professional knowledge about astrology, just a little bit from studying it in the last 2 or 3 years. And I always had this one client who, when things weren't going well, she'd come in and she'd be like, well, Mercury's in retrograde again. And so I started like looking into all this. And two of my favorite astrologers on YouTube are Sarah Verba and Barbara Goldsmith. They both have a very different style. But when I watch them, they mix in a little bit of like self-care with the astrology, and it kind of would prepare you for what was coming up. And it was really kind of interesting how what they would predict the moon would bring, the new moon or the full moon. I would see this. So sometimes they would say maybe, and because they're both very good astrologers, usually what they would tell you would be along the same lines, because it's a kind of a vague thing because it would encompass everybody, but sometimes maybe a moon would bring things to a head or open up secrets. Then other times, moon would be more about like completing a cycle, or one would be like starting a new cycle. And I noticed that, wow, there was a lot of coincidence, not only in my own life, but also in all my clients of what the predictions were. So I kind of used it as a little bit of my own therapy because I really liked the way that they explained astrology, and would watch their videos. And what they're talking about now, so I was just watching them recently, and that's kind of what inspired me. And what they're both talking about among many astrologers right now coming up in this month. And I'm not going to tell you dates or exactly how the stars are aligned to make it happen because, again, I'm not professional. But I did get the general message that this is a 7-year completion cycle, and we're going to start into a new 7-year cycle. Give or take, a little bit, because I don't think astrology is ever exact, but and when I look around at a lot of people, I see that this is exactly what's going on. And most of us are kind of stuck right on this little place of in between that we don't quite know what our future holds. And things are changing up for us. It could be, jobs, relationships, the way we're thinking about things, the way we're viewing. And I kind of always knew that it felt like that in my life where there was, I want to call them chapters. And now that I think about it, it was about every 7 years, it seemed like the chapter would change. And I would maybe have a new understanding of myself and a new understanding of how I perceive the world. So, why I wanted to share this all with you is, because I'm going to assume that maybe a lot of you are in this in between stage. You don't, I know I am personally very much in an in between stage. Um, I'm trying to think of anybody that isn't. I think, even the government, if you look at it, is kind of in between. We don't really know what's going on. Everything's, my cat just wants to join us so bad. So, okay, kitty. I try to fight these animals when I do these videos, and I'm just going to have to go with it. Because there's no way. I need my office back. So, what I want to share with you is it's okay to be confused. It's okay to not know what the future holds. It's okay to be in between. And try to embrace it. Try to tell yourself, I don't need to know. If you don't know, and my guess is according to this astrology, if there's anything real to it, and I'm not going to pretend to know the answer to that, but it interests me enough with the coincidences to continue to study it, that, you probably are on the edge of something and you're feeling it, whether it be, some changes in your life. So to embrace those and not fight them, because we don't like change normally. Change feels uncomfortable, it's scary. But the only thing I can tell you for sure, you can count on 100%, is that we are always changing. Every cell in our body is changing every second, every I don't know, is it nanosecond that we're alive. Everything's changing in that plant. Right now, as we're talking, some leaves are dying, some are growing. Even objects that we would consider not alive, like, say, the chair, it is changing as well, because it's got atoms in it and they're all moving around and it will decompose eventually. So nothing stays the same. That's the only thing we got to count on. And the sooner we can embrace that there will be changes in our life, and that is part of our growth. And when we feel we need to maybe move into a new line of career, or even just change jobs staying within the same career, or change relationships, or change up how we're showing up in the relationship, change up our communication skills, change up how we're thinking. I know I'm working on, because even though I share in hopes to help everyone, I am also very self-aware that we're all working on ourselves, including myself. So I've always got 2 or 3 things that I'm working on, at least at one time, trying to work on controlling my mind and not my mind controlling me, which is in some of the past videos that we were talking about, like, with the negative thinking. So I noticed what's kind of the universe has shown me to work on is I'm still a little too rigid in some areas of my life. And probably rigid in areas that would have been considered good in my earlier life, and they were thoughts that I adopted when I was young to be like a go-getter, straight A's, get this done, lots of integrity, which those aren't bad traits. I kind of always thought good of myself for those traits. I would be on time. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that maybe too much, though. Maybe I was a little too rigid and not going with the flow. Not saying that I need to drop my integrity down, but that it's okay if I'm not doing something perfectly. It's okay if I don't really know where I belong at right now at this point in my life. It's okay if I don't know the answer to something. And that would also go in line with controlling things. You know, one big lesson that I learned, and I stated this in my last video, was that, we don't have control over much in this world. And the longer you live, the more that will become true to you. We can't control if somebody will love us the way we want them to. We have to accept that we are lovable, but maybe that person can't just love us in the way that we want to be loved. We can't always control getting that job that we thought we should have got because maybe we weren't really meant to be at that job. So the universe has a plan for you. And that plan is to become the best you that you can be. And if you can let go of control and just sit back and accept these in-between times where we don't know exactly what we're doing or struggling with something that we're a little unsure of, and allow ourselves to just sit in it. Just be in it. It's okay. Just try to enjoy the moment for the day, even if it feels like everything around you is falling apart. Try to enjoy those mundane tasks of the day and nurturing yourself within them. Because we are meant to go through changes, and the world sometimes has to, or the universe will shake things up a bit. And there's lots of lessons to be learned in each shakeup. So if we can detach from controlling what the outcome is, because we think we wanted something one way, and just trust the universe enough to show us where we really belong, I can guarantee you that if you can let go of the outcome and just let the universe kind of take you there. That doesn't mean to not, take any action. It's more about the control. If we can let go of control and just let the universe take us, even if sometimes it doesn't feel like such a great place, or it feels a little lonely, or it feels a little scary, just kind of lean into it. Don't fight it. And in the end, you're going to come out with understanding that you're in a much better place than you were, that you're standing more in your own power, and that you're guided to things that really serve you in the best ways possible. So, my gut feeling is that astrology does have a play, just from the coincidences of me studying it and then observing human behavior and also observing what was going on in my life. It's a very broad, it's not very specific. But, so if you're interested, take a look at that, because it goes a lot further than just like, are you, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Virgo, even though I find those very interesting as well. But if this is to be true, then this is an end of a 7-year cycle. And you have a chance to start everything anew. And you can look at that chance as failure, or being scared, or being alone, or you can embrace it as, this is my next chapter. And even though, like in my last video, I told you that when I was speaking of my daughter who suffers from addiction, that my biggest traumas were with that, which, would be more recent in my life. That doesn't mean that my life hasn't got richer as I've gotten older. And I think part of the reason is because I've opened up. I have a very open mind to accept what the universe is teaching me within each lesson. And once we can like not personalize the pain that happens to us as much and look at it from a bigger picture, like for an example, if you're in a breakup, to not take it as I'm not lovable, or if you lose a job, to not take it as I'm not worthy, but to understand that that isn't maybe where you were meant to be, to serve your highest purpose. I'm going to leave it on that thought. So, well, I say that, and of course I say something else, but I'm going to leave it on that thought. But for any of you that are feeling in between in any aspects of your life or all, my challenge to you is to embrace it. Learn. What are you supposed to be learning right here? What is your lesson? And that's not in any form judgment. So if you're judging yourself, that's not your lesson. Look deeper. Please subscribe if you are finding these helpful. I need some more subscribers. And like it, comment, ask questions. And I thank you all for being here. Have a very soul-inspired week.